Let's do it.
Rolls out to the right. 5 seconds to go in the first half. Dante fires deep to the left. Moss caught it at the 11, but now he pitches it to Mo Williams. Touchdown!
You gotta be kidding me!
All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. I am your host, Jason Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownJason. And we got a really special episode for y'all tonight. We are going to have the first Climbing the Pocket silky smooth voice off because we got the man, QB1, but we brought some competition in today. Got a special guest who's going to be joining us that we'll introduce you guys to in just a little bit. But before we get to our special guest, we're going to run through, let the guys say what's up. So, JR, what's going on with you, my man?
What's going on, man? Trying to multitask right now, watching like 3 different games.
Of course you are.
Pitt, Carolina, Seahawks, Cardinals.
Okay.
Right.
All right. That sounds like you. That sounds like you. Miles, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm all right. Teddy literally will not stop biting me right now, though. He's excited because he wants to play, like, you know, another Teddy I know.
More importantly, Miles, how is your internet doing this week?
It's fine.
Okay. Well, we are glad to hear that. Glad to hear it.
I said that with a lot of.
Y'all heard him, right? He was like, it's fine, all right?
You had some passion in that. You had some passion behind that one.
I got that. Like
Y'all
that
leave
gift
me alone.
That gift where that kid's all upset.
And Saxy Prince, how does it feel to be the the member on the pod who does not have the worst internet?
Honestly, there comes a time in one's life where, you really just need to be your best self. And the last few weeks, I've definitely been being my best self. And I pass on my worst self on over to Miles. So that's kind of what the result that you get in as far as his internet connection. So you're welcome. Anyways.
And last, but certainly not least, we have a special guest for y'all tonight.
Yeah, man.
If you're doing it right on Twitter, you're probably already following her. But we brought the one and only Gabz on to the Climbing the Pocket podcast this evening, so we could chop it up with her, get to know her a little bit, get some of her insight, and then maybe see if we can't convince her to become a regular guest on the pod or the radio station or something like that. So we might do a little bit of begging later on. But what's going on, Gabz?
What's going on, y'all? What's going on?
Not too much. Well, since we got you here, we got some questions that the man Saxy Prince, he wrote up for me. He was kind enough to help me out today. So, we're going to go through some things here because we want to get to know you a little bit. So I guess, really the first question, because if memory serves, you are not from Minnesota.
No, I'm not. I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio. It's about 45 minutes to an hour south of Detroit.
So how did you become a Vikings fan? Why would you choose that kind of life of misery for yourself?
Well, it was either that or the misery of being a Cowboy fan, because I grew up in a Cowboy household. So growing up in a Cowboy household, my parents were fans, my siblings were fans. And I was 9 years old. That was the 98 season. Randy Moss was a rookie. And for whatever reason, that season, they had a lot of their games on TV that year. So that's pretty much how I became a fan. And that Thanksgiving game when Randy Moss torched the Cowboys, it made my whole family upset. So I was pretty much sold from that point on. So I've been a Vikings fan ever since.
Love it. And so as we moved along, it's at the halfway point of the season, I guess, what are your thoughts on how things have gone so far?
Over time, I've learned not to get too high or too low on the team. I'm very pleased with the way the defense has played. If I'm not mistaken, I know ESPN right now, they have them rated number 3 overall. I think they are number 5 against the pass and 3rd against the run. So, you can't ask for more from the defense being top 5 in all the categories. Case Keenum, he's been very serviceable as a backup, but in my personal opinion, I think that's all he really is. He's a backup. I think we're all excited with Teddy being back. I think the wide receiver core, with Diggs, I think he's been slightly a concern for me with being a little bit injury prone. I think it's imperative to have him in each game along with Thielen. But overall, with everything we've gone through, losing Cook and everything, I'm pleased at this point. I'm not getting too excited just yet, especially coming out of a bye, especially after what happened last year. So I'm holding off on too much excitement right now.
Okay, all right, and that's always wise. And you touched on it a little bit there. You were one of the first people I think I saw on Twitter say that Sam Bradford was probably going to end up on IR and probably going to end up needing, you know, a surgical procedure of some sort.
Mhm.
And I know that when you put that out there, people weren't particularly happy with you when you kind of put that take out there. I guess what was it that made you think so early on that that things weren't going to go as well as the team was saying for Sam Bradford?
Because I have a bum knee myself, and I've been there before. I've had multiple knee surgeries, being an athlete myself, so I've been in his shoes, wanting to play, at a high level, playing the sport that you enjoy, and have it. I know once you have one knee surgery, that scar tissue starts to build. Once you have a second one, it builds on top of that. You start to lose that cartilage and things of that nature. And with everything that happened, I didn't buy the whole story of him, having that bone bruise just kind of out of nowhere. And then it went from that to him getting the injections, and it went from one story to the next, and it just never made much sense to me. So it was early on after that Saints game. Once they were saying that he was going to be out for a little bit, I just kind of knew that either one, they were going to put him on IR, or two, that eventually it was going to lead to a scope, just because when they can't figure it out through any imaging, then the only way they can decide what's really going on is to actually, go under the knife. So that's pretty much how I figured it out, just through personal experience.
Well, all right. What sports were you playing? How'd you hurt the knee?
I actually play football in the Women's Football League. It's a national league across the U.S. I play for a team here in my city called the Toledo Rain. The league I play in is called, initially we were in the WFA, which is the Women's Football Association. They have a second league called the IWFL, the International Women's Football League. Full contact, full gear. I played for about 5 years. I actually tore my ACL and meniscus on a non-contact play, believe it or not, playing on the D-line. So I have, enjoyed that for many years, playing on a competitive level with other women across the U.S., knowing about routes, Cam Newton, and other things. So I played the game myself, learned it inside out. So had a lot of fun doing it.
Who would you compare yourself to on the defensive line, like Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin, Danielle Hunter, John Randall?
I wouldn't really compare myself to anybody. I was kind of even defense was my favorite thing to play, but I also played a little bit of fullback too, as far as offense goes. So, but defense is definitely my favorite thing to play though, because playing on that D line, you have basically first dibs on disrupting the entire play. So that was my favorite thing about it. But I never really compare myself to anybody. I'm only 5'4.5", so I'm fairly short. So the lowest player always wins. So I just always have fun getting off the ball first.
We're just going to ignore that, Miles. We're going to ignore that.
Because we knew that was coming. Gabz, can you play wide receiver? Because I think Yinka might be in the market now after Miles' last comment.
Hey, I'm the same height as Captain Munlin, so.
Wow, I didn't know you were that short.
Me either. I had no idea.
Wow.
Well, we've gone off track, and we'll try to bring us back. Here. So you alluded to it a little bit there, Gabz, but you talked about Case Keenum, and depending on what metric you choose to look at, you look at QBR right now. I think Keenum's ranked 5th overall. He's having a career year pretty much in all of the traditional metrics. And the team's on a winning streak. So there is a lot of noise out there right now saying that Case Keenum should stay in and continue to be the quarterback for as long as things are going well. You seem to have a different take on that, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I guess, what are your thoughts on Case, Teddy, and when Teddy should start?
Is that me?
That is you.
Oh, my idea on that, again, Case has done a great job being a placeholder, but I don't buy the whole narrative of, we shouldn't start Teddy against this D-line or on this field, and we shouldn't rush him in, and we don't know how he's going to look. Well, guess what you have to do to figure out how he's going to look? You got to put him out there. So I think we need to put him out there when we possibly can, because we have to remember, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have any quarterbacks under contract next season. So it's very important that we get Teddy out there, get his reps in, and see how he looks post injury, because I think that's very important to see how we handle him moving forward. So I mean, and it's nothing against Case. Putting Teddy in doesn't mean Case you suck. It means, thank you for what you've done. You've done a great job for us, but we also need to get Teddy in there. And he was a backup. That's what he was. I don't think we need to necessarily treat him like he's a starter, and it's not going to really mess up the chemistry of the team. It's not like Teddy's been in Miami the past 2 years, and he hasn't been around the team. He's been in those meetings. He's been around the team. So I don't think it's going to mess up the chemistry.
Yep, those are some good points there, and we definitely know that Saxy Prince agrees with those. And you mentioned that you don't want to get kind of too high on things, start really looking too far ahead with this team, and obviously being a Vikings fan, that kind of comes with the territory there. But as you look forward, I guess, what are the areas that worry you the most about this team as we go into the second half?
Into the second half, the offense. The offense, if they get too far behind, depending on who's the quarterback, we have to be able to score points, because I think we've slowed down a bit the last few weeks, not getting into the red zone. We've been settling for field goals, and sometimes we make them, sometimes we don't. So keeping that offense rolling. I do trust the defense. So moving forward, pretty much the offense, and making sure that Forbath is making those kicks when we need him to. All
right. And then, with that said, obviously the defense is elite. We all agree on that. Offense is a little bit shaky, but, again, depending on the metric you're looking at, we can be as high as top 10, really as low as about middle of the pack. I guess, where do you see the Vikings ranked amongst the elite teams in the NFC?
I would say we're up there. Until we have that really, really bad game where, because so far, we've lost against the Lions. And we didn't look so good against the Browns. They actually scared me that game, that first half, because they were looking pretty bad against the Browns in London. But we haven't really had that bad game that, where we can look at the team and say, you know what, this is a fake team. So as of right now, I think the most important thing is us coming out the bye strong, winning these games on the road coming up, because we have a lot of games on the road against some tough opponents. We got the Rams coming up. We don't play Philly this year, do we?
We will in the NFC Championship game.
There we go, Yinka.
There you go. Think of positive. But I think we're up there with the best of them right now. Until we have that one bad game and we continue a downward trend, I think we're right up there with the Eagles and the Rams and everybody else as of right now.
Okay. All right. Like that. And before I let the rest of the guys jump in here, what is your bold prediction for the rest of the season?
That's a good question. Bold prediction. My bold prediction is Teddy comes in and proves all the haters wrong. That's what I want. I
don't know if that's considered bold for this podcast, though.
Well, not for this podcast. No, not for the Teddy files. No. Bold prediction. I say we make it to the NFC Championship game.
I like it. Well, JR, I need you to take a break from the multitasking. You got any questions for Gabz?
What the hell is in Toledo, Ohio?
Absolutely nothing. You got the University of Toledo. It's a decent school. I attend that school. Pretty much nothing. If you're into the bar scene, you're in the bar hopping and stuff like that. We got a lot of bars, but really nothing. It's pretty boring here. But I was born and raised here, so it's home.
So you bar hop a lot? Is that what you're saying?
No, I rarely drink. I'm a homebody. So, yeah.
Gab's too busy working on the route tree, man. She ain't got time for all that.
Right?
No, you know what? I actually haven't been back. I've been out of the game 2 years. Like I said, I've been, having issues like Sam Bradford, man. My knee been kind of messed up since I had the surgery, so I haven't even been back yet. But hopefully my knee can get it together and I can get back out there again. But no, I haven't played since the end of 2015. So,
where can we find this footage, Gab?
I don't know where they have it at these days. They didn't really post too much of it online or anything like that. It was mainly kind of like a Coach 22 type thing where you had to have like a password and stuff like that. They didn't really post it too much online.
Yeah, because we need to get a side-by-side comparison of you on defense and Yinka on defense, and see what's what, to see what's really good. Miles, you got anything else for Gabz?
And just to get into football, how did you end up finding that? How did that become something you really got into? I know it's starting to become a little bigger of a thing. Women football leagues. Did you ever, did you play in high school or anything, or did you try to, or do anything else like that?
I think what it was is my older brother has cerebral palsy, so he was total care growing up in a wheelchair. So being that my father couldn't really push the sports on him, he pushed it on me. And I also had an uncle who was in the league. He still holds a lot of the rushing records at the University of Tennessee. So coming from
what's his name?
Chuck Webb. He played for the University of Tennessee in the late 80s.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I've kind of was born into a athletic family. I always had football around. I always say I was kind of like the girl from Remember the Titans growing up. Just always being around it. Always played basketball. Basically was a tomboy growing up. That's pretty much how I got into it, and football just always been kind of my first love. So
that's awesome. What was your number?
Well, it was 55, which is more of a linebacker number than a D-line number, but yeah, that was my number when I played.
Is there a reason behind the number? Yeah. That's it.
Huh?
Okay. Is that the reason?
No, actually, this was before Anthony Barr was even on the Vikings. But no, it was just one of those things.
So Anthony Barr got her number. That's what she's trying to say.
Yeah, but yeah, I've just always been in the sports. So well, I won't say all sports, but mainly football. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Saxy Prince, hop on in, man. You got any questions for Gabz before we get to this Redskins game?
Man, Miles stole my question because I basically just wanted to know how you maybe even for the women who listen to our pod and whatnot, what are avenues in which that if they want to play football and whatnot, how they can get involved at maybe a semi-professional level or even beyond that.
Well, for my ladies in the Minneapolis area, there's two teams. You have the Minnesota Machine and the Minnesota Vixen. Those are two of the pro women's teams in that area. There was also a team in the Wisconsin area. I can't think of them. Not that it matters. It's Wisconsin, but
damn.
I can't think of their name, but yeah, the two women's teams are the Minnesota Vixen and the Minnesota Machine. But as long as you're 18 and older, I believe if you're 17, your parents have to sign a waiver. But yeah, any of the ladies out there who just love football, want to stay active, want to kind of be a part of a family with great camaraderie, you want to travel, just being able to enjoy a sport that you love, definitely go for it. Don't be afraid if you don't think you know the sport that well, because they pretty much teach you all the basics from the beginning. So definitely go for it. You won't regret it. It's probably been one of the best experiences of my life so far. So I definitely don't regret doing it.
What kind of schedule did you guys have? When did you guys play? How many games a season? Stuff like that?
We would do tryouts in October, conditioning the whole month of November, and the whole month of November would be conditioning, and then December is when we would kind of start our phases of implementing all the basics and stuff like that. We would practice 3 days a week. The season started in April, and once the season started in April, we would practice 2 days a week with our games being on Saturdays, and the season ran April through June, and then playoffs would go late June, early July. So I've been able to meet a few pro players. Franco Harris, he actually owns the team in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Passion. They're like a powerhouse team. They win the national championship quite frequently. I've met Icky Woods. He's the head coach of the Cincinnati team. So I've met a couple pro players in my time of playing. So that's been cool too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Well, Gabz, thank you for coming out and enduring the firing line so that, we and everybody else can get to know you. Guess we'll let you off the hook here so we can actually just start talking some Vikings a little bit here. And, we had to bye, so wasn't really much going on in terms of Vikings football anyway. But, we're back now. Minnesota, traveling, going down to Washington or I guess Maryland to play a game. And we'll go through the list, and Gabz, you're our guest of honor, so you can start with first here. I guess, what are your thoughts on this matchup, and what are you going to be looking at when the teams square off on Sunday?
Well, with Washington coming up, the biggest thing for me is I think if I'm not mistaken, I read that their defense is dealing with a lot of injuries right now. So if we can take advantage of that and basically run the ball down their throats and really take advantage of them being injured. I see that as a big opportunity for us coming up.
Yep, and they started off their draft pick. I think it was Jonathan Allen, right, Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan Allen and Ioannidis both are dealing with injuries. One of my buddies is a Skins fan, and so their depth on the interior is lacking right now, and you can see it. I think in the last game that they played, not Seattle, but the week before that, where they just wore out as the game went on, and they weren't able to stop the run as they started to get into the other guys. So that's one of the things, I'm also looking at. I hope we're able to establish the run, wear them out, and then just take it to them, especially as we get later in the game. How about you, JR? I guess what are you going to be looking at in this matchup?
Yeah, I think they have to find a way to exploit their injuries on both sides of the ball. They have some injuries up front. Brandon Scherf is banged up. Trent Williams is banged up. I know Ty and Secchi is probably going to start at left tackle for them this game. I'm expecting Trent Williams to be out just because he hasn't practiced to this point, and he hasn't really participated in practice to this point either. So I'm expecting Ty and Secchi to start at left tackle. I think Scherf's going to end up playing. He's doing more and more as the week goes on. But we know Everson Griffin is banged up a little bit as well. So I think they have to find a way to create some pressure on Kirk Cousins, because that's what Seattle was able to do to him, and they were able to fluster Kirk Cousins. We all know Kirk Cousins he's an average NFL quarterback once he is in a clean pocket. But once you start to pressure him a little bit, he gets a little antsy back there, and things start to process a little faster for him, and that's what Seattle was able to do to him and fluster him. But he did come back and engineer that game-winning drive. So I think they have to find a way to create pressure on Kirk Cousins. On the other side of the ball, they got some issues up the middle as far as defensive tackle depth. So I think this is a good game to get Latavius Murray going. I think this is going to be one of those grinded out games where he gets those 2 or 3 yard carries, but eventually as the game goes on, he starts to get some of those 10 to 12 yard explosive runs. So I think this is a good game to get Latavius Murray going up the middle. They have to find a way to attack those guys up the middle because their ends are really good. Preston Smith and Ryan Kerrigan are good players, and we don't know the status of Mike Remmers right now, who hasn't practiced to this point. So I think they have to find a way to attack those guys up the middle, especially at those defensive tackle spots.
Awesome. And Miles, what are you looking at? I know that your back in the day draft crush Josh Doxson is on the team, but I guess outside of getting to see him play, what else you can be looking for in this game?
Yeah, I think JR hit it on the head. I think this game's one of those with how banged up Washington is, but they play they're coming off a really big win against Seattle last week, so I think they're they're riding high right now, even though if they have some losses on their they have some injuries under their belt, but I still think they're a team that can definitely beat us, and being on the road is a tough one. But I think, like JR said, I think establishing the run and controlling the clock is going to be a big one in this game. I think keeping that offense off the field as long as you can is sustaining drives, long drives, converting on third down, and scoring touchdowns. I think you can't have a game where you're inefficient in the red zone, because that's going to be so big in this game, because every point's going to count. I think, this team matches up pretty well against us overall, even though they are pretty banged up. I think, they know how to exploit some of the stuff we do. So I think, a guy like Kirk Cousins last year, he did pretty well against us. I know their receivers are struggling right now. Jamison Crowder's banged up and struggling all season. Josh Doxson kind of struggled, throughout the season too. And Jordan Reed, he's always hurt. But he's, when he's healthy, he's, dynamic. Vernon Davis is another one of those guys that worries you too, because he can get vertical on your linebackers. So it's just one of those, you don't want to let them have too many opportunities. Don't let Kirk Cousins have the ball too often, because, he's going to make you pay at some point, I think. So, say what you will about, him as a player and overall, but I think, he can make plays. He can push the ball downfield. So he's not afraid to sling it too. So, and against this defense, if he has that opportunity to kind of wear us down a little bit, and, if our offense isn't sustaining drives, it's going to be pretty tough to keep him off the field and, keep giving him opportunities. So I think, if we can sustain drives and get in the end zone when you need to, when you're down in the red zone and convert points, that's going to be important.
In Saxy Prince, as we kind of look at this matchup on offense and defense, which players on Washington really, which players worry you the most?
Jamison Crowder. I know, like Miles has said, I know he's been struggling, but I think what worries me is if this is going to be a game where Zim doesn't want Xavier Rhodes to shadow, that might potentially put Xavier Rhodes on, who I think for the Vikings is probably the most important key to the Vikings winning. Weirdly, I think it's Trey Waynes. I think if you see Jamison Crowder against Trey Waynes, I think it's going to be a very, very long day, and I think Kirk Cousins is going to go that way more often than not. And I do think Trey has taken a step forward as far as being a lot more confident in his play. Kind of attacking more, playing be more physical at the point of attack. But obviously there's some things that the Washington does that could become a problem. Obviously, if their tight ends, both tight ends are good to go. I mean, that means obviously maybe dropping Anthony Barr into coverage, which I'm not always as much of a fan of. But I think it's obviously definitely going to be a game of matchups. I mean, like it always is, but I just don't think that this defense in certain aspects matches up well against some of the things that the Washington does well. So, we'll see how it goes.
And I know they have a lot of injuries. Is there anyone on the Washington defense that really makes you nervous? Saxy Prince?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Say it again.
Yes. Is there anyone on the Washington defense that makes you nervous?
I think you kind of touched on it, both the ends, specifically Ryan Kerrigan. I think our tackles can hold up against them. Specifically Riley Reef. I think he's played phenomenal this year, but I think it might be a little bit tougher if we have to go without Mike Remmers, who thought we were going to be saying that at this point in the season, but. Rashad Hill can go in there. He has played admirably when he has had to step up and tackle, but it could be a very, very long game if Case Keenum has to play under pressure a little bit more than he's used to. So, I think that's definitely another thing to watch is watch who's winning in the trenches on the ends.
All right, and back to you, Gabz. As we look at this Washington team, I guess which are the players on offense and defense that kind of make you worry when you think about how they match up with the Vikings?
I think they're running backs. Once they get some wiggle room, they have some talented running backs. So just playing a fundamentally sound game on defense is important. And just going back to what everyone said about offense and what I alluded to earlier, just making sure we're scoring points, in the end zone, getting 7 instead of 3. That's going to be important because I honestly think it'll probably be a close game, and I think those points down in the red zone are really going to be the difference. So.
And JR, I saw you pop off mute there for just a second, but when you look at this game, I guess who are the players on Washington that you're really going to be looking at that could be matchup nightmares for us?
Matchup nightmares. None of their defensive personnel really strikes a lot of fear into me outside of Kerrigan and Preston Smith. Now, Rashad Hill is probably going to be expected to start just because it doesn't seem like Remmers is going to clear the concussion protocol in time. That's what it seems like right now. So one of those two guys could really give him fits. I'm not sure, which guy is going to start on Rashad Hill's side at right tackle. But, I mean, offensively, Jamison Crowder could cause some fits with McKenzie in the slot or Terrence Newman, whoever is guarding him. Josh Dotson may present some issues, but I think Trey Waynes matches up well with him because Dotson excels running vertically. And we all know Trey Waynes excels, at turning his hips and, defending those vertical routes. So none of their offensive personnel really strikes a whole lot of fear into me. Their running backs really aren't much to me. The Seahawks held Robert Kelly to 18 yards on 14 carries last week. And I think Seattle's defense is right there with Minnesota's as far as talent. Thompson can be, that matchup nightmare like a Theo Riddick or Amir Abdullah was for the Lions against the Vikings just because they finagle him in some ways to get him in space. So against Barr and Kendrick. So he can cause some fits at times, but I don't think he can completely take over games. So none of their personnel really strikes a whole ton of fear into me. And I really like this matchup for the Vikings on both sides of the ball.
And JR, just to follow up for you. So one of the things that's been pointed out about Kirk Cousins a lot, especially in kind of the fantasy football kind of numbers type community, is that he really doesn't have that target that he's really honed into. So last year, Kirk Cousins really heavily targeted Jamison Crowder. He really heavily targeted Jordan Reed. This year, he's really, really spreading the ball around. There really doesn't seem to be one person that he's really honed in on. When you're going in to stop a quarterback that is really spreading the ball around like that, I guess what is the best way to go about doing that when there isn't just a player or even two players that you can key on?
I mean, I think you just play your base defense. I'm sure Mike Zimmer put together a great plan. I think it's really good, actually, that he's spreading the ball around. I think it's better for the defense because you don't have to worry about just keying in and game planning for one specific guy. Now you can, game plan your regular defense around whoever he wants to throw the ball to and can play your base defense, whatever that is. Crowder will be back this game, so I'm sure he's probably going to want to force feed Crowder this game just because that seems to be like his favorite target this year. Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis are probably going to be full go for this game, so the Vikings linebackers are going to have to come to play this game as well. So I think it's a good thing that he's not force feeding, everybody from a defensive standpoint for the Vikings.
Okay, and I know Crowder's back, but one of the players that's been getting a little bit of hype lately, I think in part because of the draft capital, in part because he does make a lot of wild plays out there, is Josh Doxson. Miles, I guess, what are your thoughts on that potential matchup, Josh Doxson, Trey Waynes? And, JR seems to think it's a favorable matchup for the Vikings. I guess, what are your thoughts on that, looking at it from the perspective of the wide receiver?
Yeah, I agree with Jason. I think we talked about it earlier a little bit today in our group chat, but Doxson doesn't have a whole bunch of wiggle. He's not one of those guys that's going to break you down and make you miss too often, in the open field or running routes. He's just like he's a vertical threat who's going to go up over top of you and make plays that way. So that's where a guy like Trey Waynes can excel against a guy like that because he doesn't have to worry about him breaking him down like last year with Pierre Garcon and like a Deshaun Jackson. Those kind of guys have more wiggle than they do over. Well, not Deshaun Jackson, but Pierre Garcon had more wiggle than speed. So Josh Doxson is more that vertical threat. So that does match up well with Trey Waynes because he doesn't have to worry about those hesitation routes. He doesn't have to worry about a lot of those routes. Just it's the deep posts, the fades, and the go routes. So those are the kind of things he's got to worry about with Josh Doxson, which I think Trey Waynes excels at. So it could be a good matchup for us. So I'm excited to see it because I do like Josh Doxson. I think he has a lot of potential, and he's he's one of those guys that although he's a little older, for being his second year in the league, he does have all the talent in the world. So I was a big fan of his pre-draft, and I would like to see him do well, but I hope it's not this week.
All right, moving on to the Saxy Prince here. We're gonna jump right into it. Yenka, what is your score prediction for this game, and what is your bold prediction for this game?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a middle of the road kind of contest. I think score prediction, maybe something. I think it's going to be a weird score. So I'm going to say something along the lines of, 26-19 Vikings. And I guess my bold prediction would be neither Stephon Diggs or Adam Thielen scores, but we get a trio of touchdowns from Floyd, Wright, and Kyle Rudolph.
Okay, I like that. Gabs, how about you? What's your score prediction? What's your bold prediction for this week's game?
I'm going with 23-13 Vikings. And my bold prediction is I think our defense gets 2 interceptions off Kirk Cousins.
I like it. JR, man, how about you? Score prediction, bold prediction.
I think this is going to be a very weird game. So I'll go 20-17 Vikings. Bold prediction. I say Trey Waynes gets 2 interceptions.
Wow. Wow. Miles. I like JR coming with the crockpot pick, though. Miles, what you got, man? Bold prediction? Score prediction.
Score. I'm going to go score first. I think it's going to be 24 to let's go 24-20. It's going to be a close game coming down to the end, but I think the Vikings make a play on defense at the end of the game to end the game. Bold prediction, I think Case Keenum throws 3 touchdowns and no interceptions.
And so if this happens, Miles,
Teddy's still starting next week.
When does Teddy play?
Next week. That's the thing, though. That's the problem is, like, I don't even want to get into it because, like, yeah. I hope obviously we want him to play well. Like, you don't want Case Keenum to not play well. So, like,
he can play well as a backup. That's fine with me. Go ahead, play well as a backup. We like it.
Well, that doesn't make sense, Yinka. But
no, I'm saying he plays well as a backup, so he can back himself on up to the bench.
I mean, I totally understand. Like, if he plays well and they think he's playing well, like, I don't think they're just gonna pull him. But I think it's about time. Like, I think the Vikings will start Teddy Bridgewater next week. So,
and I know most of us
almost no matter what happens this week, in my opinion.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to get to. I know most of us think that Week 11 is the week that Teddy's going to get out there, home game, home crowd. But I was just wondering, like, with that bold prediction of Case going, for 3 touchdowns, if you think there's anything Case Keenum could do to lock down that job, maybe not for the rest of the season, but for at least the next week.
Honestly, I don't even know. I think
prayer.
Yeah. But honestly, though, no, for real, what I really think the Vikings really want to do this week with this game is they want to use Case as that, like, as the guy that gets them to the 7th win and be 7. If this team can get to 7-2, then that's huge because then, you're 5 games above 500. You have a pretty, depending on what Detroit does this week, you have a pretty solid lead, heading into the Rams next week, a home game in the NFC North. You're looking at a pretty solid playoff position at this point if you win this week. So I think at that point you can kind of give yourself a week to kind of see what Teddy Bridgewater can do at home, in a home environment against a really good Los Angeles Rams team.
Well, all right then. Let me see. I guess I need to throw one out there. I'm gonna go with 21-20 Vikings, and I'm going back to the well because at some point it's going to happen. But we're getting 2 non-offensive touchdowns in this game. It's got to happen at some point. Some point we're going to get those return and pick sixes like we were getting in years past.
The most underappreciated player on the Minnesota Vikings is Marcus Sherrills.
Oh well, yep. We got to move on from this topic before you and Yin can get going because y'all Minnesota folks. Once we start talking about Marcus Sherrills, it just goes and goes and goes and goes.
He's one of the better special teams players in the league.
It's a great story. We know.
Yeah. Did you know he went to the University of Minnesota? Marcus Sherrills.
Here we go.
Adam Thielens from Detroit Lakes.
Death, taxes, and Marcus Sherrills makes the roster.
Yeah, every year. Every year. Well, all right. Before we get up out of here, I guess we'll start with Yinka. Yinka, I've seen that you dropped, I think, 3 articles, maybe 4 articles in the past week.
Yeah, man, I've been busy.
You got anything else going, or are you just gonna ride with those for a little bit?
I think I'll come out with something this weekend. This weekend will be tough. I just got asked to do another short film, so maybe not. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep it going. I'm gonna see if I can try to pump out some of these mid-season awards before.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on, because you just dropped that out there. I mean, you got asked to do another short film. Give us some details. What's going on? When's it coming out? When can we see it?
So we just wrapped 2 weeks ago. We just wrapped the short film I was doing, that single.
Oh wow! I guess it wouldn't be a podcast unless at some point Yinka's internet remembered Yinka.
It had to happen.
Miles been good this week. Yinka started talking about himself at the end of the pod and just do it.
Damn, my bad, y'all.
There he is.
Gabz got the dial up too. What happened, Gabz?
Oh, Miles getting his get back.
No, mine is Jameis Winston strong. I don't know what happened.
Eating W's or what?
Yeah, finish up, Yinka.
Yeah, I'm dead at that. But no, yeah, I finished up the short film Single Father. It was actually really great. Put some pictures on Instagram. But actually, the director of photography from that film actually contacted me earlier this week, and he's just like, "Hey, I loved your range, loved what you did on the film. Come in, be the lead in this other short film that we're doing. It's supposed to be like some kind of horror flick or whatnot. So I'm playing a priest. So we'll see how that goes."
Yeah, man. Like it. Miles, what's going on, my man?
I finally have a weekend. I'm going to the Go for Football game to scout this weekend. So maybe I'll do a little, I don't know. Life, man. But I got some time this weekend finally, so I'm gonna try to get some out. I promise.
Okay. He promised y'all, so that means it has to happen. He promised it has to happen. And JR, I mean, you've been teasing it for a little bit now, but let the folks know what's coming up.
I can't wait for this.
Yeah, so I got my first Reading Between the Lines scouting journal coming out tomorrow morning. So basically, it's a huge notebook of everything that I collect over the summer and on film up to this point. And each one will include a prospect and some other form of information that I want to get out that certain week. So tomorrow, the prospect highlighted will be Baker Mayfield, a full first-round mock draft, and a Twitter follower Q&A. And I'll always end each one with what's called a six-pack of final thoughts, which is just my thoughts on things that's going around in the sports world and, news that's happening around the world as well. So that'll be out tomorrow on climbingthepocket.com. Well, it's out now since it's Friday. Oh, and I can't believe Yinka didn't say this. Happy birthday, Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, Yinka, I can't believe you didn't say that, man. What's going on with you?
Y'all act like I'm the only person on the pod that loved Teddy. Miles got a dog and named it Teddy. So
that's for his uncle, though, Yinka.
Yeah. His name.
Hey, Gabz, Teddy got anything on deck for us? Anything that the people can be looking for?
No, not really. Like I had said, doing my own podcast just didn't work out because school has been consuming my life this semester. So haven't been able to really keep up with that much. So
you got a new podcast now anyway, so
so I appreciate the invite. But besides that, just homework this weekend and watching my Canes beat Notre Dame this weekend. So that's what's on my plate.
I'm about to have to mute Gabz.
How are you a Canes fan?
We don't need to talk about this. We don't need to talk about this.
Same thing with the Vikings, being an impressionable child,
They're finally relevant.
They were good back in the day too.
Finally.
Finally relevant.
The years you probably became a fan of the Canes, they were legit.
Yeah.
Ken Dorsey, all that.
Yeah, it was around. It was probably around like 2000, 2001, probably around that year. I was still in junior high. So
Ohio State. I remember the Miami Ohio State national championship back then.
Yeah. It was like right the year before that. So, yeah. So it's a long time coming.
I was in such a good mood, and then Gabz had to go in the end of pod talking about the Canes and just reminded me about college football, man.
My condolences.
Yeah. It's been a long college football season. Well, I don't really have anything on deck right now, so I think we can go ahead and wrap this thing on up. Gabz, thank you for joining us today. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for keeping Miles in check before we got on the recording tonight. He was getting a little out of pocket, so thank you for that. And I know your own podcast didn't work out, but we're gonna keep getting at you until maybe we can get you either a regular spot on this pod or a weekly spot of some sort on the Climbing the Pocket station. So
and I'm pretty sure if I keep acting the fool, you're gonna take my spot full time. So watch out for that.
Well, I thought you were gonna say if you keep DMing, and I was saying you got to DM the right person first.
We ain't got to get into that on the pod. We ain't got to.
Shout out to Gabby, man. Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out, Gabz. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the Climb in the Pocket podcast. My name is Jason Brown, joined by Gabz, JR, Miles, and the Saxy Prince. Y'all have a good night.